Thank you very much, Comrade Rupert, and it was a very appropriate song for this occasion. Let me hear you for Comrade Rupert. Comrades and friends, as I said, we have come to one of the main item on our agenda this afternoon. I want to introduce to you a person who at a very young age was recognized by Comrade Cheddi. When the party won election in 1992, he was the junior finance minister. Then, shortly after that, he was made the senior finance minister of our government, the PPP civic government. In 1999, when Comrade Cheddi Jagan resigned as president, Comrade Bharrat Jagdeo was named the president of our country. He led us to victory in 2001. He led us to victory in 2006. Today, he is holding the highest office in the People's Progressive Party, that of leader and general secretary of our party. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very optimistic, and I know for a fact that come the next election, he will once again lead us to victory. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Bharrat Jagdeo.
Thank you very much. Comrades, friends, we've all gathered here once again to pay tribute to a very special person, Dr. Cheddi Jagan, a person whose ideas still loom large in this country, a person whose dreams are yet unrealized, but they continue to influence significantly the party that he created. And people all across Guyana tend to look at Babu Jaan now as a special event, that the People's Progressive Party will come here not just to regale the country with the numerous achievements that Dr. Jagan made and what he meant to us and this country, but they almost with great expectations expect us to talk about what's going on in our country and what our ideas are as to how we will address the situation. And so today, as we gather here, most people will recognize that there is a pattern emerging in less than 2 years of APNU government. And what we are witnessing is an insidious campaign to drive fear into various sections of our population. They believe that if we become fearful in this country, then we will act in a manner that would allow them to continue to rule this country long into the future, even if they lose the popular support of people. And so what you see, if we add it all together, you can see some clear trends emerging. So why is it that SARA, which has no legal authority, will raid a businessman's home 2 days ago and ask him for statements about concessions he got from GRA when that is within the jurisdiction of the GRA? Why is it that SARA will take a businessman into the office of the president's compound when it has no legal authority to do so, to question him? The reason is simply fear. They want to drive fear in the business community. These businessmen, if they dare to take a stand in this country, they must be afraid of the repressive nature, the tools that they use, the Barnumite tools that they're using. Why is it that sugar workers who, when they now go on strike, which is a routine thing provided for by laws, they're told that if you continue to do this, we will shut down the factory. You will not have a job. It is again with the aim of driving fear into the hearts and minds of sugar workers so they become less militant. They will not want to take protest action because if they do, there will be consequences. Why is it that after putting the value-added tax on private education and educational materials, and there is a petition and a protest about it, the president says, these people and the Minister of Finance, they're tax dodgers, mischaracterizing the whole issue. You can go after tax dodgers, but the schools don't pay VAT. It's the parents pay VAT. $350 million more they would collect from the parents. The schools collect the money. But then the Minister of Finance says, we are coming after the private schools for tax evasion. That is to prevent them from protesting. So again, intimidation, fear. Why is it that when people go out on the streets, across politics, across race, across religions, they protest this corrupt bargain meter deal, then the president says they're tax dodgers, watch out, we're coming after you. He wants to intimidate them, scare them off from protesting. When the Attorney General says, we put them there, so they got to rule for us, he's speaking about judges. That is designed to intimidate judges, that we put you there, so you gotta now give us rulings that are favorable to us. That is designed to intimidate. When the rulings by judges and magistrates go against the government, the Attorney General launches, using the Chronicle, an attack on them. So no judge, no independent body will in the future want to take a decision against the government because they will be subjected to an assault by this government, and they're fearful that it would harm their upliftment or their progression in the area where they're working. Why is it that Carvel Duncan, who is afforded constitutional protection, he was the head of the Public Service Commission, he's called to the office of the president and offered a bribe to leave his position. And when he refused it, the president said, I don't want blood on my carpet, something to that effect. That there will be blood on the carpet. That is designed to intimidate them. The miners said to the government, if you don't meet with us, in 2 weeks' time, we are going to protest. And guess what they did? They split the mining movement, and then they went to some of the large miners and sent the GRA to assess them using tax assessment. So many of those miners now are fearful that they will be stuck with huge unreasonable tax bills because if they go out to protest against the government. The people are saying the tall buildings, Sarah, intimidating the business community, saying if you have tall buildings, we will come after you. So comrades, I think I've given you enough to paint a picture of this insidious campaign. It's a quiet campaign. It's designed to condition our minds so that we are intimidated as a country if we dare stand up against this emerging dictatorship. And that is what we must not allow to succeed, because if that succeeds, then this country will lose all the freedom that we have gained over the past years. and we will forever be enslaved by this group. So, in this situation, it's easy to despair or to fall in despondency. Many of our supporters are worried. But how do you address it? People are looking to the People's Progressive Party for leadership in this country, and we must offer the leadership. And we cannot offer the leadership if we are fearful ourselves. We have to say we are the only party that stands up now between this government and dictatorship. We are the only party, and we must behave that way. And so I say to you, don't be intimidated. They can't disappear all of us. This is a different era. And we have to respond by doing a number of things. First of all, we have to strengthen this PPP family here, because if we are strong, we can move mountains. And so I expect right across Guyana, wherever you are, that you lend a helping hand to create the strongest PPP ever in the history of Guyana. That you join the groups, get the older comrades to come out, get the women to come out, young people, all in a task to strengthen the party on the ground, to give leadership in the communities, not to be intimidated by anyone. Because if we are strong on the ground, then they can't fight. That's what they're afraid of. They can't fight numbers. And we have the numbers on our side. So that's the first thing we have to do. The second thing is that you have to remain open in this family, the PPP family. There will be new members joining this family, and we have to be accommodating. So a lot of people who left and went to the AFC, they're all disillusioned and they're coming back. Welcome them back into this family. Welcome them back. Don't by our attitudes chase them away. That's not the Cheddi Jagan way. Don't by your attitude say, oh, it's your cause this to happen, you want change, so look at the change you get. Yes, people made mistakes. Many acknowledge that. And so it's time to strengthen our family by inclusion, by bringing people back to us. There are many who never voted for us, I've seen people come to Freedom House and the office of the leader of the opposition that I never believed in my life one day will come to Freedom House. And they're coming to us. They're looking for a home in a party that believes in progress, a party that believes in bringing people of all races together, a party that doesn't have a religion that is multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious. That is what, and we must offer in this party that home for everyone who wants to come to us, because if we have the numbers, then we can win easily at elections. So lots of APNU supporters are coming to us, and we must have the right attitude to ensure that this family gets stronger within itself, and then stronger by inclusion, bringing more people to us. Comrades, we must make sure that young people, that your children and grandchildren understand by joining this party that it would be a meritocracy, that if they work hard, they'll get progress, that there's no entitlement like how this government treats government positions, that they will progress. Look at the party. The party is a wonderful blend of young and old comrades all together, the youngsters coming in. And we need to do that. We need to make sure that our party is seen as the party that could accommodate the dreams of people. Comrades, the two key words: reinvent ourselves by broadening, etc., and re-energize. Those are the words that we must contribute to, every one of you. So I hope that every single person here can play a role in this task. Secondly, these things are falling apart here. I hope this is not a hostile one. Yeah. Comrades, we must do a number of things. We must vigorously defend our freedoms. That's the first thing. So first of all, we need to defend these freedoms by understanding what is taking place in our country. I saw Mr. Suraj Bali in his final press conference before he demitted office said that there was nothing essentially wrong with the elections and he was a wonderful person, and that you have to be a pachyderm if you were a chairperson of GCOM. A pachyderm is like a person with thick skin. So I agree with him, but he has to understand that pachyderms and their skins are impervious in two ways, inward and outward. And so when he said that about the criticisms, he should also understand that when we made several points about the rigging of elections, he was also impervious because he's a pachyderm to those arguments. And so let me once again pose these questions again. How come you're talking about until now the police can't find out about who submitted the fake statements of poll? But the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Public Security can call the Commissioner of Police in a single day and get them to do something that is sometimes not within the standard operating procedures or the law. How is it that almost 2 years after that, where they can't find out who submitted these fake statements of poll? And Suraj Bali bears responsibility for that. Did he call the commissioner and say, why aren't we getting the results of this investigation? Because I suspect that the results of that investigation would have proven embarrassing to him and to the government of Guyana. And that's why until today, we cannot get the results of that investigation, which is a simple thing, Secondly, how come it was so wonderful and that Suraj Bali was so, as he said at his press conference, so accommodative? And in Region 8, when we had a request in for a recount, and we lost the member of parliament in that region by a single vote, we did not get a recount as is provided for by law. And how is it that when young Charles Ramsden took our request over to GCOM for a recount in Region 4, they locked up the offices at GCOM and disappeared, the RO for Region 4? How come that happened? Why is it that it happened? Doesn't answer that. And if they're so upright, he and Lowenfield, why is it that until now, Lowenfield has a court matter trying to strike out our elections petition? What are they afraid of? If they're not afraid of anything, have the petition be heard, and then GCOM will be vindicated if you're so clean. He has not answered those three questions. And if you get answers, if he were to give truthful answers to those three questions, then we will reassess the so-called wonderful role that Suraj Bali said he played in GCOM. Comrades, we have a bigger struggle ahead of us, one that is also insidious and can lead as part of this pattern to the destruction of our democracy. And this is the appointment of the chairman of GCOM. I do not want this afternoon to go into all the technical arguments, because we believe they're wrong. And we believe that the president's interpretation is wrong. We've been working in a reasonable fashion to make sure that he follows the law of the country and the Constitution. And we've seen all the shenanigans. But let me tell you, I saw in today's paper something from the Kite News written by Mr. Brushel Blackman. And Kite News helps to prepare the ground for government action because they're in bed with the government. So this is what they said in today's article. Jagdeo has agreed to submit a second list, but if that list is rejected by the president, observers believe that President Granger will unilaterally appoint a chairman since the Constitution allows him to do such. That is not true. The Constitution does not allow him to unilaterally appoint a chairman. And we think this is where they want to head. The unilateral appointment of a chairman so that they upset the delicate balance at GCOM, which is 3 opposition, 3 government, and then the chairman comes through a consultative process. If they upset that balance, that will mean major problems for us in the future. And we, in the People's Progressive Party, we will not take that sitting. We'll have to hit the streets and make sure that this does not happen if the government goes this route, because we will never be able to have a free and fair election if they do that, install one of their cronies there. So I do not want to go in a great lengths about all of these things, but watch how it evolves, because we will be asking you to look at it. Comrades, the economy. I was tempted to play something for you to invite President Granger to speak today at Babu Jaan. But he's out of the country, so I want to play something for you. See if you can hear it. You can't hear it. It was his job creation initiative, the cook-up initiative, the fried rice, plantain chips initiative. I wanted to play this something for you that he said. I'm trying to get it on the mic, but nobody can hear it. Comrades, this government, the economy is tanking. They have no investments. We have more taxation, more borrowing. We have a president who talks about the economic strategy that focuses on cook-up and plantain chips and fried fish chops, etc. We have increased crime in Guyana. We have almost an emerging constitutional crisis. There are no plans to stimulate the economy. So what's going to happen in the future? What is going to happen to Guyana? Because if you have no investment, the economy is already declining, and you have no plan to stimulate the economy in the future, or you're taxing people more, then what happens next week? What happens next year? What happens the following year? This country will go back to where we were in the past. And so this is our big worry. This tax, spend, borrow policy of this government, because that will lead Guyana to ruin, economic ruin. So comrades, let's look at a few things. I'm trying not to go too long. The VAT, they want to stimulate housing construction, but they put VAT now on building materials. So now the housing sector will continue to decline because all building materials now have to pay the value-added tax. And they have a clever way of doing it. They moved it from the zero to the exempt category, so you don't see it on the bill. But the businessmen will be forced to increase the prices because they can't claim a refund for the input VAT. So it's a clever way of doing it. On services, they have now imposed VAT on medical services and education services. Already banking services are declining. You have a greater default. So the service sector would collapse, housing would collapse, the mining sector is reeling now from new taxes, 100% increase in the tributous tax. The 2% final tax no longer is final. They have to pay a 40% tax now, and they put the VAT on heavy-duty equipment that can kill the mining sector. So mining is in decline. The forestry sector is already in decline. You talk to the people in Aichuni or Kwakwani or Linden or many of those small communities, they have no markets for their logs, etc. Rice production is declining. We didn't see, Moses Nagamoto said he's going to Mexico to find markets. We don't know, the Mexican markets disappeared. So, right. So this, comrade, this is what has happened. And so I heard some of the comrades from West Coast, from over the river, Region 5, are here now because they're trying to take away their lands, part of the intimidation, taking away their property. So comrades, that is collapsing too. So the mining sector is collapsing. So every single sector of the economy is in trouble. Every single sector of the economy is in trouble because of the policies. And let's talk a bit about sugar. Donald Ramatara mentioned sugar, but before I go on, we saw the VAT, the 200 tax measures, tax and increase in fees. But guess what the only things that they made VAT free? Not education. They put the VAT on education and water and electricity and everything. But now, in the last budget speech, the Prime Minister can bring in personal vehicles now free of VAT. That was one of the exemptions they made. Remissions to government agencies. They cut tax benefits to migrants. They've cut tax benefits to charitable organizations. They cut tax benefits to churches. They've cut tax benefits to the business community. But remissions for the government services have gone up by over $1 billion, so they get more tax concessions, only for a few government people. We hear Harman talking about austerity measures and reusing envelope, and the president flies to Bahamas in a private aircraft. That must cost us probably $20 million for that single trip. And he's been flying now with these jets around the Caribbean. I was president for 12 years. I can't even remember a time when we had an aircraft like that to fly around the region. We'll go commercially. We go on the plane, maybe 1 or 2 persons following us. In this case, when the president goes abroad, he has an entourage, unbelievable, 15 people. And we all pay for that, and they're talking about austerity measures. We got to tax the children and their education to get more money because the economy is declining. And notice, they've given several reasons for the decline in the economy. First, it was drug money under the PPP. When they ran out of that excuse, then they said it's a global financial situation. And now they're saying it's sugar causing the decline in the economy because we spent too much on Skeldon, which is a fallacy. A fallacy. We did not spend too much on Skeldon Because if we spend too much on Scotland, how is it that in 2015 and 2016, the Gold Board lost $27 billion? That's more than the cost of the entire Scotland factory. And in Banks DIH, just sued the government for a refund of $28 billion because of a decision that they made to give DDL some tax write-offs. And that is not the end of it, but that decision alone, the lawsuit, will cost us more than the entire Scotland factory. Why? How can they do these things? Find fiscal space for those reasons, and they can't find fiscal space to help the sugar industry. 32 billion in 3 years is affordable in a $700 billion budget for 3 years. It's definitely affordable. But the president has made it clear, I don't want sugar on the books. I don't want sugar on the books. So now that he has said that, they have to, in spite of all that they're arguing about, they have to now close some estates, like they're planning to do Enmore and Rose Hall and several of the cultivations. They have to do this because the president doesn't want to spend a cent on sugar any longer, although sugar only needs transitional help because it could boom in the future. So this is what they're doing. That is why the PPP has been arguing that they must do an economic feasibility study. They must do a social impact study, a diversification study. Ramjatan said, why must we do that? Why you all didn't do that when you were there? And we said, the reason we didn't do it because we had no intention of closing the industry. You only do those things when you intend to close the industry. But they're afraid by doing those studies will point out that the sugar industry is viable. And that's why they're refusing to do those studies. You can make no decision about an industry. Sugar is not a company. It's an industry in this country that has systemic impact. And therefore, no viable decision can be made without being guided by those studies. So the president, this is a political decision. It's plain and simple. The fact that they shut down the factory at Scotland for the first crop using some spurious things that they have to fix the boiler and they haven't started as yet. That's an excuse they're using, but they're preparing it for privatization. And how is it that Nagamutu's son-in-law now is between the man leading the privatization? He's the go-between. You think he's doing it for free? Think he's doing it for free? That's what they're aiming to do with Scotland because it's a corrupt deal. We've made it clear that any deal that doesn't meet the standards of transparency or accountability, when the PPP resumes office, we are going to tackle those aggressively. And any investor who thinks that they can come here and get sweetheart deals, they're in big trouble. Big trouble. Because we don't like threatening investors because your country needs investors, but not on the hand deal with Nagamutu and the others to get rid of valuable assets. How is it that Scotland is a junk and these people want it now? How is it that the investors want it? Because the sale of power to GPL is the prize there. And at Enmore, it's the packaging plant. Those are the prize. And so they want to get their hands on the prized possessions. That's why this was farmed out. I don't want to speak much more about sugar, but I want to say to the workers who are here that these people have no care for what happens in the communities. Look at how they're treating the workers at Wales. They're already treating them with disdain. Those communities are in serious trouble. And we cannot be intimidated by them. They respond sometimes. When the teachers' union came out and protested, they responded by removing some of the taxes. And they met the teachers' union. The sugar industry and sugar workers have to be prepared mentally to take to the streets too at some point in time. Because if we don't do that, what will happen here is that the closure will take place, and then people will suffer without saying anything. We have to be prepared mentally. We've done that in the past. Sugar workers used to strike all the time when the PPP was in office. We need to see that now too. We need to see some of that, to strike for their rights. Comrades, there are lots of things. This government has now moved to what I think is a kleptocracy. But maybe today I should not speak too much about that. Crime is ravaging the country, and they're hopelessly ill-prepared. The president said pirating has stopped in Barbados because we have had an increase in aerial flights With what? This man is out of touch with reality, totally out of touch with reality, apart from the cook-up and plantain and chips, etc. Now, I like plantain chips and I like breadfruit and stuff, but we have the young people of this country who are thinking about creating new industries in information technology, in agriculture, online businesses, ecotourism businesses, businesses that create value added, that are services oriented. You can't send our young people of all races and all religion, even your supporters, back to sell plantain chip. That is not a strategy. We need to see a vision for the future that encompasses everything, but out of touch with reality. And so the crime is ravaging the country, and they're busy. They think they're making a lot of progress. If you talk to them, you see the arrogance with which Ramjatan responds in Parliament. He has a $3.2 billion in this budget from a loan, the Citizen Security number 2, that we left from the past, we negotiated. That's the only major program that they have in the budget to tackle crime. A loan negotiated and signed by the People's Progressive Party. That's $3.2 billion there, and it's in the budget. Outside of that, nothing. And what they do to the police force now is, I met some policemen. They're totally demoralized because of the mixed signals from the executive. What they are giving instructions of an operational nature. So many of these things, Office of the President, for example, the executive gets an audit done, hire their own auditors, then they take the audit report and in a public ceremony hand it over to the Commissioner of Police, and he allows himself to be used. And then they go after the people there in the audit report. That is the executive giving operational instructions. The executive can only give instructions of a policy nature. When Basil Williams says, I've set aside $100 million in my budget to prosecute people, he's violating our Constitution, because that's not within his remit. That is within the remit of the Director of Public Prosecution, but it goes unnoticed. So this is what is happening. But he will find $100 million to prosecute somebody who they said stole not the GRDB, the marketing board, 1.7 million Guyana dollars. Special prosecutors must be made for these people. And the DPP, they cut the DPP's budget, who goes after the rapists, the murderers, and everyone else. So their priority is to go after political opponents, not the criminals, that's where they're going. Now the entire SOCU, which was set up by the PPP under the remit of the police force to assist the anti-money laundering bill, and that unit creating FIU, that has now been converted into a body to go after political opponents. not drug dealers anymore, not the special organized crime, but to go after political opponents. So, and then Harman said in Parliament, we have a budget in our office that will top up the staff from SOCU. So that is political interference again in the mandate of the police force. I don't want to speak much about this because all of these things will form part of the defense of the many people that they're harassing around the place. And so we've heard a lot. Today, I just want to urge you that you be careful about the news you receive. I have spoken about it, about the fake news. The $28 billion that they said at a minimum that was stolen by the PPP every single year through procurement fraud has now come in the Kaichur news. It has become not a conjecture from Clive Thomas and Gulsaran, not a campaign tool of the AFC and APNU, but it came out of an audit, which is not true. It is not true. And so if that's the case, in 3 years they should have saved $84 billion at least. That's enough to keep sugar alive for 15 years into the future, if that were true. So do not fall prey to the many things that you read in the paper, because a lot of this is fake news. So comrades, I'm not going to go on too much because I know people, you will hear from me. I'm spending time in Berbice tomorrow, meeting with the sugar workers, some of them in the communities, and the party will be out there talking to people, going to community meetings, having public meetings. I want to urge you all to become activists, to help mobilize people when there are meetings, to come out to them, listen to them, at which we can explore some of the themes that I spoke about in greater detail. Because this country, from every count, on constitutional freedoms, we are sliding towards a dictatorship. In terms of economic progress, we're going backwards. Social worries have emerged now because look at the sliding of the exchange rate. So if you got a 15% increase in your salary since this government took office, but the exchange rate slid 5%, in real terms, in US dollar terms, they've effectively reduced your salary. And that's what's happening. And the exchange rate is predicted to go much, much higher. So, because there is no attempt to address it in a systemic manner. So, I predict that you're going to see welfare loss in this country in a major way. Increase in unemployment, increase in revenue, increase in hardships. People wouldn't be able to send their kids to school. Education and prescription drugs would become unaffordable, and a deterioration in social and well-being. So all of these things will happen. We can't use, as I started off by saying, we can't worry, we will worry about these things, but we can't wallow in it. That's not the PPP. The PPP gets alive when there are problems. And we must now prepare ourselves to address these problems so that whenever the elections come, that we be so strong, we be so ready, we'll be so broad-based that we will win an overwhelming victory. That is the best answer to all of these problems. So comrades, thank you for coming here today. The party appreciates your presence. Many of you make a lot of sacrifice to be here. But we have operated because you've stood with us. We have kept the party going. It's your party, it's your task to address all of these things. Long live the PPP and long live the memory of Cheddi Jagan.
Yes, comrades, let me hear you for our General Secretary of the PPP, Comrade Bharrat Jagdeo. Tomorrow, Comrade Jagdeo will be having meeting at 10 at 10 o'clock, Sunreef at 12, and in Kanji, Reliance at 2 o'clock. So